Hi everybody and welcome. It's great to have you all with us. You will see today it's extremely hectic because we had load shedding and we had so many gremlins in our system, but we were able with our amazing team to put this together for you, and you will see we'll be on yellow couches, then on brown ones, and we are live, so we are there with you, and in the comment box below you can post your questions and we will answer. So we hope and trust that you'll be able to understand report cards and assessment for ECD, and that you'll join us for any other webinars and seminars that we have. Enjoy and make sure you take a lot of notes, and please do comment so that we can answer those questions. Just a few house rules and things that you need to know before we start. You're going to see below there is a place where you can chat and you can comment. Will you please help us by just saying hello or waving down below in the comments, so that we know that you are online and that you are actively aware of where the comment settings are. Can you see anybody commenting?
Nobody's commented yet, but that will be great if you can share your name with us, and then you know where to ask your questions. I would like to encourage you to ask questions as we go along, because keeping your questions until the end, you're going to forget what you wanted to ask. We will be answering questions right at the end, but for now, please, in the chat box, just as we go along and there's something that you want to know, post it in there, and then we will answer all the questions at the end of today's training session.
Oh, great. Are you ready, Stephanie?
I'm ready, yes.
The rest of the team, are you up and running? Super. Okay, so we're going to look at our slideshow, and we're going to start with what to expect from today. Now, as I said, today's training is all about the progress report card. So we're looking at assessment and the principles of ALDA, and then we're moving into progress report cards. The reason for this is, you remember we sent out a census to all of our members, and we asked what was the things in your center that you really are struggling with. And the one thing that stood out, and I know you're doing ECD training with full courses, you have the same experience as I have, that people out there just say that they can't find information, that they don't know how to put what they've learned in the ALDAs onto their progress report cards. So we hope that today this is going to resolve that for you.
Absolutely.
So our first slide is what is assessment. As you can see, it says it's an ongoing process, and it's aimed at understanding and improving each child's skills and ability. Why is assessment so imperative, so important? And should a school really do this, a preschool? I mean, I'm working with babies. How do I assess a baby? How do I go and actually give a baby a test? Is it even possible to do that? So what is assessment?
Shaman, I think we need to understand that every child can be assessed. Even a baby that is just born is assessed. They give them the APGAR score to see whether reflexes and everything is as it should be done. So assessment, I can tell you what it's not. It's not just a test, sitting the child down and writing. And we need to assess because there's a journey. There's a journey and there's an end destination. If I decide I want to go on holiday and I do my whole planning and I'm going to Cape Town for the holidays, getting in the car and starting to drive doesn't mean I'm going to actually get to Cape Town. I have to have regular checks and balances as I go along. Am I en route? Was that town on my route supposed to be there? Have I got enough fuel? Whatever. So there's a lot of things that have to happen for us to go through the journey to actually reach our end goal. And it's an ongoing thing. It's not just okay, it's nice and it's in my files and it's all there. That doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. So assessment is really important to understand and to make sure that we are on track, on where we are going. That we can identify where there are issues and that we can address that. So if I'm driving to Cape Town and I see I'm running out of fuel, if I didn't check, I wouldn't have known and I would have would have come to a standstill eventually.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yes, definitely. Assessment is all about the journey. You have to meet the child where they are at, and you have to realize that some children are going to be exactly where you want them to be. Some are going to be a little bit behind, and some even might be a little bit before you. They might be a little bit more advanced. So let's have a look at why assessment is important. Sometimes when we think of the word assessment, we think of formal schooling, and we think of those tests that are set up, and they get a score and they get a percentage that's allocated to the knowledge that they had. In preschool, it does not work like that. We have to understand that assessment is something that we do for the students and not to the students. It is not a punishment. It really is there, like you just said, to help guide that person to know how we can assist, pick up on all those potholes, or if they're bored, how to get them stimulated again. So there's enrichment and remedial. It's not just every child is the same. We put a round peg into a square box. So let's go and have a look at slide number 3. Oh, goodness gracious. I think this is one of the biggest complaints. I'm an ECD teacher, and I think that the management of schools is too complex. I just have so much paperwork, and I have to assess the whole time, from the morning till the evening, till it's just assess. When am I supposed to be working with my children? So I think it's important that we explain to you very carefully that ECAS or ECD continual assessment is something that happens even if you don't have a book in front of you. It is something that is going to happen in your classroom even if a child is going to the toilet, if a child is eating with a spoon, if a baby is transferring a bottle from one hand to the other hand. These are milestones that can be assessed. So when we're talking about when to do assessment, is there a specific time? Do you plan for this, or does it just go and this is what happens?
No, it's continuous, Charmaine. It's something that happens every single day. There was a time in teaching where we had specific things that we had to do. There were set times for assessment. But what happens if on the day of assessment you don't feel well, or you're emotionally not where you should be, and you do badly that day? That is not a true reflection of who you are. So continuous assessment is a brilliant way of overall, over a period of time, getting a relatively accurate idea of where the child is. Have they met the milestones? Have they not met the milestones? So in ECD, we assess every day. Now, I know that some people are really freaking out now. How can I assess every day? It's easy. By watching the children, you are assessing. By listening to them, you are assessing. The main thing is just to make notes of what you've seen and what you've heard as part of your observational assessment. If a child should be able to sit by a certain time, just by watching them, I don't have to actually take them and put them down and say, okay, now I'm going to see if you can sit. In my day-to-day activities, I will soon be able to see, but whoa, there's a problem. That child cannot sit yet. Simply by doing my day-to-day thing and watching and listening. But assessment happens every day, all the time in ECD centers. Okay, super. So you will see, we refer on the slide in front of you, we refer to daily touching on each of the elders. Now, this is the elder book that was provided to me by or from the Department of Education. This has been endorsed by DBE, and it was actually funded by UNICEF, and this is the national curriculum for South Africa. This is the ELDA curriculum, Early Learning Development Areas, and there are 6 of these. Sorry, it's live. Not a problem, Steph, that happens, hey? Oh my goodness.
That was fun. So here's our ELDA book. And in our ELDA book, you will see it refers to the 6 ELDAs, or early learning development areas, that we now have in ECD. And these are, if I have to give them a name, almost like a subject. You know, in our current report cards, we have numeracy, literacy, life skills, language. With ECD, that falls away. They have new names. Their names have changed, and they are now well-being and belonging and identity and belonging and communication and exploring mathematics. There are 6 of them, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is the book out of which you do your planning for your assessment, is the ELDA book. Now, we're going to give you this link as well. We'll place that also in the comment box so that you guys can refer to it online. There is a draft copy available online. Now, we talked about continual assessment, and what does this mean? You cannot assess if you haven't touched on all 6 of the elders every day. If I say I am continually assessing, I can't just look at maths, and I can't just look at Afrikaans or English and language and can they speak and are they speaking soft and loud or whatever. I have to touch on all 6 of those learning areas every single day, or I'm never going to get through my curriculum. Am I right in saying that?
Right. Yeah, you're right. And people think that this is very complicated. It's actually really easy because you can assess more than one elder in an activity. So I don't have to have 6 time slots or 6 slots in my day to say, all right, now we're going to do well-being. Okay, now we're going to do communication, because they all interweave. And it's really not as complicated as people sometimes think that it is.
Okay, so if I could give an example of that, say for instance we are doing exploring mathematics, which is the concept of numeracy or numbers, and we want to teach the group in front of us 3 to 4 year olds counting up to 5. But we also are doing, say for instance, on the farm, and we have ducks on the farm, and we are learning about ducks and that they are on ponds, and what you call the one is a goose and the other one's a gosling, and whatever the case might be with the vocabulary we want to teach. And we want to sing and move, and we want to show with our body and indicate what's happening. So we want to put that movement in. If I am going to cover all of the elders, I could do one song like 5 little ducks went swimming one day over the hills and far away. So it's new vocabulary, it sticks to the theme, but it does cover the elders because I'm counting 5 little ducks and I'm doing directionality over the hill and I am singing a song, so I'm developing language. So I don't have to, like you said, set up a station and now speak. I want to hear you speak. And I need to assess you, so speak. You can't do that. You have to, within their natural environment, while they're playing, look at the elders and assess the key principles in the developmental milestones.
And that's where your planning comes in. Because you shouldn't, I know it sometimes happens, but you shouldn't be in an activity and realize, oh, but I can actually assess this and this and this as well. It should be a planned activity where you say before the time, we're going to sing this song after we've done the theme, and I'm going to assess blah, 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 because you've planned for it. And what really is nice about the continual assessment opportunities that the children have is you give them more than one chance to prove competency in a specific skill or a term that they need to understand, etc.
Great. So that's continual assessment. So what do we assess? Now, if we look at the different age groups that we have, this is I think the largest battle for me in ECD, is that the schools and the teachers that are out there and those that are qualified and unqualified working with children actually don't understand that you can't teach and you cannot assess if you don't know where to find the child at. We call these developmental milestones. So there's a standard. We can kind of guesstimate that a child by the age of 6 months will sit.
Yes.
That a child near a year and a year bit will stand up and walk. That we will have a child being able to do 3 or 4 things in sequence by the age of 4. So we have a good standard of what is out there and what a child normally developmentally does. So what do we need to cover when it comes to assessment? I know there are a few points on our slide. If you could just elaborate a little bit on that for me.
All right, so when we do assessment, we need to make sure that we stick within the age group, like you said. And there the elder curriculum will guide you quite nicely because it makes sure that you don't work too far ahead and actually force children into an age bracket that they're not supposed to be in, or that you don't work too slowly and the children are actually not quite where they are supposed to be. Because in our assessment of ECD, there are quite a number of things that we need to make sure of. We need to look at their emotions. Because remember, when they get to grade 1, we need them to be able to express how they feel, what they're experiencing, etc. So we need to make sure that in our assessment we do check their emotional state as well, or that they understand emotions. We're going to look at their cognitive development. Now, cognitive development in children are really, really important. And that is something that you'll quickly pick up when you see a child is actually not not at the same space as their peers. You were talking earlier of there's like a standard. Some children are slightly behind, some children are slightly in front of the others. But we need to make sure that within the standard, everybody reaches the milestones as they should. And this is what assessment does. It's like almost like you've got a little tick list to say, by this time they need to be able to do this. Now in our ALDA curriculum, it actually, for all of the learning areas, it gives you specific times in specific age groups. And it's very nicely written because it gives you specific outcomes. So it tells you what should the child be able to do cognitively in this age group within math or within communication or whatever. We look at social interaction. If we didn't assess, we won't pick up that there's a child that prefers to always be on their own and they don't like interacting with others. So assessment of social interaction, our physical development, and this we're going to touch on this just now, but we sit in a scenario today where it's dangerous for children to play outside in the streets and in the fields. And when I was young, we had parks that we could go to. We don't have that anymore, and many children grow up in front of the television or with a tablet or a PlayStation in hand. We need to make sure that their large motor skills are developed, because if they don't, we're going to have academic issues later. And somehow people don't always make the connection, but it's crucial that the large muscle groups also develop to help with academic performance later on. This is something that the elder will guide you in. What needs to be assessed when? What should the child be able to do? And on that point, going on to fine motor skills. You cannot expect of a child to do something if their anatomy does not allow for it. So I mentioned earlier today, I often get principals phoning me, inquiring about ECD level 4 studies, and you get to talk and then they say, oh, but my school is so good, the kids are, kinders is so oulik. When they are 3 years old, they can write their name. And then I want to tell them, you know nothing, lady. Because a 3-year-old child does not have the anatomy to be able to do that. And you are forcing them to do something that they should not be able to do. So stick within the guidelines for fine motor skills development. And then general skills, bathroom skills, eating skills, communication skills, etc. So all of these things have to be assessed on a regular basis. Why? Because we ultimately want to move them on from where they are with you into a different kind of school setup. Your grade 1, your grade R, grade 1, your big school. They need to be able to cope in there. And if we did not assess, we would not pick up that they haven't met the milestones, and later on the whole brick house is just going to fall down.
Definitely. So what I think is very important is that for you to be able to assess, you can have as many guidelines as you want, like the ALDA curriculum, but if you don't understand the developmental milestones themselves, you will maybe be giving a baby steak instead of milk. And it's not what their body, like Steph said, anatomy needs at that point in time. I want you to see the picture of a plug in the wall, one of those sockets. And in your brain, you have axons and dendrites, and the connections between the left and the right hemisphere of the brain has to be made. So this child has to repeatedly do something for these connections to be made. And then only by that repetition, the plug goes into the socket. It's not switched on yet. It's just there. That's how it should be. Developmentally, that is where it should be. They must understand the sound of letters before they are able to write the letter, for example. Now, age appropriately, they get interactions like, now we are going to learn how to write your name or number 1, and you are old enough to do it now. And the moment that they have to start forming those letters, the body is in the correct space to do so. Cognitively they are, emotionally they are, and they are able then to physically form the letters. But forcing something is like giving a baby steak when they should be drinking milk. So crucial here, very important, make sure that you do not overextend what a child should be able to do. You can go and Google, that's what Google is all about. Google developmental milestones and look at the holistic development of children, and teach your staff, if you're a preschool owner, or attend short courses to understand developmental milestones, because that is what planning, exercising, movement, cognitive skills is all about. And every
it
child,
lays the foundation.
it does,
If
definitely.
the foundation is wrong, then later on something's going to go skew.
Yeah. Developmentally appropriate age is what we are discussing at the moment. And besides looking at the physical and what you and your school would like to do because you need to impress the parents, I think you should rather look at what the child needs to reach those objectives and goals at the end of the day. So here is our developmental pyramid, and this is really how it's supposed to look. This whole thing has been turned upside down. We focus so much on worksheets and on training the brain that we forget that the brain cannot train unless the rest of the body is in place. So if you look at the pyramid under 1, you're going to see muscles. If your core muscle is not strong enough and your neck muscle is not strong enough, and if your eye muscles aren't developed, and if the muscle between the back of your blades is not developed, you are going to struggle academically. If those things are in place, and that's why there's so much focus on play, if your muscles are in place, your emotions will be in place. You will not have those children who have these outbursts and meltdowns in class because they are aware of their body and their body can do what the brain instructs it to do. So it's important that you understand that these are the stepping stones that you should have. So before you start with the brain and trying to drill information into the brain, the muscles must be in place, the emotions must be in place, and the brain will sort itself out. That is crucial to understand. So somebody asked me a while back, so is it wrong then to start by sending out so many worksheets? Because other schools are doing it and that's what parents expect.
I think that is a big problem in education today, is where schools compare with each other and it's become a competition to see whose children can start reading and writing the soonest. That is not the right way to do it, and that is why we have a curriculum with guidelines. And if you go and look at that, that is not what the child is supposed to be able to do. Just think of the future. If you've got children at the age of 3 or 4 reading and writing or beginning to read and write, when they get into grade 1, and now there are other children that have come in that don't know that because they are where they are supposed to be at, these children are going to be bored. You're going to make life difficult for the grade 1 teacher, apart from everything else that is going to come apart. We have to start with the muscles, and there's a scientific reason for that. Not developing some of the muscles, not crossing the midline, not teaching the child proprioception, knowing where my body is in relation to everything around me, later on manifests academically in all sorts of troubles. And I don't want to say I'll guarantee it, but I want to, in Afrikaans we say, ek gaan jou 'n brief gee, that those children who started with the brain too soon will end up having to do remedial activities later on in school because the muscle groups did not develop as they were supposed to. So don't fall into the trap of worksheets. The worksheet is just going to cover point number 3, the brain section there. You have to make sure that your muscle groups, large and fine muscle groups, are developed well before you go into too much detail with the brain.
Okay, wonderful. Let's go on to the next slide. Why is progression important? So if we look at, well, we actually had a discussion on this. We have ECD students that have to submit report cards that they've created or that their school has created so that we can kind of observe if they understand assessment. And in all of, well, in many of them, many, not all, many, don't want to generalize, but in many of them, what they've done in term 1 on their report card, they will do in term 2, they will do in term 3, and they will do in term 4. And that is really not how it's supposed to work. Could you kind of elaborate a little bit more on this slide that says, if we look at progression, it's something building upon something that we already have, knowledge that is being embedded, something that is expanding knowledge instead of just basic knowledge.
Let's start with a theme. Okay, I'm not even going to go from one term to the next term. Let's just look at a theme. On Monday we walk in and we start with a new theme. We want to teach new terms, new concepts, new vocabulary, etc. I cannot walk in today and tell them about caravans and camping and starlight and fairy lights and what, and tomorrow expect them to know that. You start with a little. Tomorrow you take the little, you review that, you go back, you talk about it again, and you add a little bit. And the day after, you go back, you review, you talk about it again, and you add a little bit. Because that is repetition, and so we build. So look at my body. Initially, all of us in nursery schools or ECD centers, we start at the beginning of the year with the theme, my body. Imagine how boring it'll be for a child if every single year they learn about I have 2 eyes, a mouth, and a nose. And next year I have 2 eyes, a mouth, and a nose. What about hair and ears and cheekbones and a neck and Adam's apple and brows and etc.? There has to be progression. And the same happens in your terms. You cannot assess in term 1 in ECD what you're going to assess in term 4. There has to be progression. And this is a key concept that many schools miss. And I often find that the issue is when you have a primary school teacher who slots into nursery school and they want to do it the same way as they do there. You can't. We first have to make sure that the concept is fixed, that the child understands, that the vocabulary is there before we can actually move on and build and make it more relevant for the child.
All right, so if we look at this and we look at my body, this would be an introduction. I want you to look at the picture and you will see the little face on the left-hand side. That would be for somebody who needs remedial. That is, like you said, taking one step back. So when you're planning, you need to plan. Everybody's in the middle on standard, and you have to, as you said, move back one step, and then you need to revisit that. For somebody who, for instance, a new child that's come to your school that's never been in a preschool or a daycare before, you can't just continue because that's one of the bricks that you should have laid before you could build onto the rest of the house. So then we have the standard, and then we have enrichment, and people forget about the enrichment part. And these children actually have better skills or more skills and more capabilities, and they get bored, and the moment they're bored they disrupt your class. It's not because they are naughty, it really is because they are bored. So we have to, when we plan for all 3 of these scenarios. Now, which curriculum should we use? I referred to the ALDA book, and I told you guys that there are 6 ALDA learning areas in here. What you have to understand, and we've seen this come up and pop up every now and again, is that you cannot teach CAPS, which is a curriculum made for grade R up to matric, to children under grade R. So 0 to 5 years, you will be teaching the ALDAs. The question might be, is it compulsory? Yes, it is. This is our national curriculum. So you've heard about NALTS and you've heard about the ALDAs. This is combined. Another thing that I know came up in our previous webinar is if we already have been using a curriculum and it's an excellent curriculum, must I throw it out the door, buy a whole new thing that I don't even know is going to work? Can I make what we have ALDA compliant? What is it that we could do with what we have instead of having to reinvent the wheel?
So the ALDA guidelines that we get actually helps a teacher or a school to make sure that they've worked on all of the outcomes that a child needs to achieve. That can be done in various ways. So if you already have a curriculum that you've got, that you are using, you've done lots of planning, you've got all the beautiful flashcards and whatever goes with it, no need to chuck that out the door. What you will need to do is take the ALDA curriculum guidelines and check for well-being in this age group. I need to make sure that the child can do this and this and that and such and such. Go to your curriculum and check. Okay, yes it does, yes it does, yes it does, yes it does. Oops, here's one thing that we have not got in our current curriculum. You cannot say, it's not important, we're not going to do it, because remember, we're building, and leaving that out leaves a gap for later on. So all you need to do is take your current curriculum, find an activity or something that you can add in there to address that specific outcome that is in the ALDA. So really it's not necessary. So what makes the ALDA curriculum framework so nice is that you can apply it to what you already have. and it helps you to make sure that you don't miss something along the line. If you've missed something, it's easy. You just add. You add to what you have. If you see that you've got something that is not age appropriate, then move it to where it is age appropriate. But really no need. We're not telling you today what you've been doing is all wrong. Throw it out now. Yes, what you need to do. You can adapt.
So when you are adapting your program, the most important part is that you understand that the terminology should change. You cannot be working in whatever program you have or decided to work on or have bought, and you are still talking about numeracy, literacy, life skills, and language. You're still talking about 4 to 5 years. Because if you look at the ALDA curriculum itself, the terminology inside has changed. So your report cards will change, the way you assess will change just by changing the name. You will not call it numeracy anymore. It will now be for exploring mathematics. It has a new name. It has the same concept on the inside, but it has a new name. And even on your I know in most of our classrooms we put the teacher's name and we say 4 to 5 years. You're going to have to say 4 to 5 years advancing to grade R, because in the book the terminology for 4 to 5 years is not 4 to 5 years. It is advancing to grade R. So just changing the terminology makes your curriculum and your school already more ALDA compliant. Absolutely. So it's a small thing that you need to tweak to get this process going.
And then from grade R we use caps.
Yes. From grade R, you use caps. So you cannot use caps for the younger children. You are supposed to only use them going on. You're going to see a little bit later, we're talking about the report cards. And you'll see there's a vast difference. And then we talk about essay SAMs and weighings and FATs. We don't have those strange words and strange things in ECD. So do not take the CAPS curriculum and water it down and try and apply it to your children in 0 to grade RR. That is the wrong way to approach this, and it also means that you're going to miss milestones, which is going to lead to remedial later on.
Absolutely.
Okay. So here are our 6 ALDAs. I want you to have a look. On the screen, you're going to see we have E1, which is in red. It is color-coded, and it says well-being. Then we have E2, which is identity and belonging, and that is in blue. We have E3, which is in purple, and that's communication. E4, exploring mathematics, that's green. E5, creativity, that is orange. And E6, knowledge and understanding of the world, and that is in pink. All of the definitions are in here. They are explained. So if I just look at well-being, well-being is about having a happy, healthy, and well put together body, right? So what do I need for that? I need water. I need food. I need to exercise. My muscles must be developed. I need to be happy and understand my emotions. So instead of explaining this as life skills, they have put it under well-being. So the name and the terminology would change. Identity and belonging. How do I see myself? Where do I fit in? Where am I going? Communication is about language. You can communicate in dance, in painting, so you don't just communicate with words. So you need to understand each of these learning areas. If you don't understand what they're about and what they used to be when it was before this, the old terminology, you're not going to be able to implement this for your assessment.
And then important to realize that each one of these ALDAs have to be addressed every day. So every day we're going to look at well-being. Does the child know where they belong, what they are part of? Can they communicate? We have to do some kind of math activity, and that's not 1 + 1 = 2. The ALDA will guide you in that, being creative and teaching them about the world that we're living in every single day.
Definitely. So if I'm looking at the word E6, the pink one, knowledge and understanding of the world, I always say add technology here, because if you do that, you can do history, you can do science, you can do geography, and you can look on tablets, and you can look on your cell phone, and you can integrate that in your classroom. So there's never one of these that you don't touch on in a single working day at school. So if I'm going to do slide 8, planning for an ECD center, you said very early on in our webinar, you cannot assess if you have not planned. Now, I have had a lot of calls regarding this. How do I do a year plan? And I think the thing that stood out for me most was, in ECD, you plan bi-weekly. In other words, Every theme runs over 2 weeks. Nothing less, over 2 weeks. Why would every theme run over 2 weeks? I mean, I could do so much more and teach them so many more fun things, but why on earth bore them to death for 2 weeks? That's the question.
So when it's about progression, we need 2 weeks. 2 weeks is not 2 weeks. It's actually 10 days. It's 5 days, 5 days, on which we can build. And for the child to really grasp the concept, for it to become embedded knowledge, we need 2 weeks. If you are going to say, okay, well, I'm going to do fine motor skills every week anyway, so I'm going to do one theme every week, a new theme. Your vocabulary and your communication is not going to be embedded. It's going to be way too much for the child, and it's not going to be part of who they are. You know, so you might think, yes, I got so much done, but how much of that did the child actually grasp and make their own?
So looking at this, your year plan is really crucial. And for all ECD owners out there, your themes are supposed to run over 2 weeks. So you would take your year plan, and you can get this now that we've migrated. Those that don't know, on the 1st of April 2022, we moved from Social Development, DSD, over to Department of Education, DBE. And with this migration came a major shift. The first portion of the migration was just to get all the key role players and the admin and the officers and everybody sorted. And the second portion is to get every ECD center registered. So that's Vangasali registrations that are coming up. It's not the one you did during COVID. It is the intense one where you have to submit files. So we'll actually be doing training on this. We're doing a free webinar and on the couch, and we are going to be doing short courses that you can get CPTD points for as well to help you. So if you don't understand POPI Act compliance, then you can do a course on POPI Act compliance and make your school POPI Act compliant. So for this year planning portion, if you go to the Department of Education on Google and you type in Department of Education year calendar or year plan, holiday plan for 2023, it is going to give you the new national one that's been gazetted. That means for coastal and for inland areas. It tells you when we open, when we closed, all of that. Does that mean that all ECD centers now have to be closed because we're part of the Department of Education?
No, it definitely doesn't. But it helps you in your planning that when there is a departmental school holiday that has been planned or assigned, you can know that if there are children in your ECD center with older brothers or sisters, that the parents will most likely go on holiday then, taking the child out of your school for that period of time. So it's good practice to plan in advance, to know that during that time, I don't run with new concepts and new themes, because some of the children will not be in the school. So it's better to have a holiday program in that time. So doing your year planner, slotting in school holidays, Valentine's days, photo days, concert days, etc., helps you to make sure that you have enough academic time to cover everything that you need to cover, to do all of your assessments, and still have time for all of the other things that need to happen.
So at the end of a quarter, if we're looking at the quarterly plan, at the end of the quarter, you should have assessed continually. And now this goes, if you have a secretary and you're very fortunate, this will go to your secretary and they will start typing up your report cards and doing all of that. But that doesn't happen if the secretary is busy with other stuff. So the school should be coordinating itself according to a what's when and what's going to happen in our school for the following year. Now, the best time to do this planning is in August, so that you can book venues for the next year. You can see when we're going to send our stuff in for typing, when it should go out to parents, when are they going to be available. I mean, if you just say, I'm going to have a parent evening and it's in the middle of the holidays and that child isn't even there, you're going to miss out on half of your school. So being in control of what, when happens at your school makes your school function better.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to close because the departmental schools are closing. That is your free choice if you're going to be open and you want to offer that service to others. Some people have a skeleton staff that they have lesser staff members because the children are less. Some of them choose one allotted time like June, July and say we're all closing down and our teachers also need to go rest. So it's going to be what you decide as a school to do. There's nothing compulsory about following every school holiday, but know why you need to plan. That is crucial. All right. the different types of assessment. Now, this is the doozy. The first one is called observational assessment, or the O assessment. Then we have I for informal assessment, and then formal assessment. Now, observational assessment, the word says it all.
It does.
It's what have I observed. So I don't have to grab a book immediately and stand there the whole day trying to assess every little thing passing by. He winked his eye, he moved his toe. I do not need to do that. If I've planned and I know the objective for this assignment that I'm doing, or this task or this activity is this, that is the only thing that I have to look for in my planning for today to do. Correct?
Yes.
So when the educator sees something or hears something, could we say that's observation?
Yes, absolutely.
But where's the evidence? If a parent then at the end of the day says, I don't have evidence that this child could or couldn't, is there any other way to give that evidence back?
You will absolutely write it down, observation notes, you will sign, you will have a date and a time of when this happened. If there's another educator there, they can sign with you to confirm that this is what happened. But over a period of time, we don't just do observational assessment. Our observational assessment will lead into the next type of assessment, which is our informal assessment, where we will have different evidences or more evidence that we could add. So it's an entire process. By the time we get to the parent and have a parent-teacher conference or get together, by then I will have enough evidence. So observational assessment is part of the whole process of gathering enough information to be able to know, has the child mastered something, or do they need assistance or not? And you build up evidence as we go along.
I remember that a parent actually said, and a teacher actually said this to me as well from another school. They said that you can't assess babies. There's no way you can assess a baby. There's nothing like observational assessment. There's no measurement for babies. There's no way we can do this. Is it really true that you can't assess a baby?
You can assess every child. Like I said when we started, a newborn baby is assessed in terms of certain things that have to be in place. So once again, if you refer to the ALDA curriculum, if you go and look at the very, very first age group that we have there, those are our baby, that's our baby area. There are specific things that they need to be able to do in each of the learning areas. And it starts off by observing. Can they or can they not? No need for a baby to do a worksheet or a baby to sit down formally and have a formal, thing that they have to do. A lot of what we do with babies is, can they pull themselves up from the cot? Can they make themselves known? Can they react if there's a loud noise? A lot of that is observation.
Okay, so it goes back to the ALDA. So you will see the ALDA forms the skeleton of your assessment. It tells you what should be assessed. And then you have to go and figure out, when am I going to put that into my planning? So the observation part, as Stephne rightly said, is all about notes. You just make a little note. So when all the children are napping, and you remember, but this child came to school in tears, emotionally you will write next to the child. And I've picked up that it's much easier in a large group, say for instance 24, 5 of them will have, say for instance, the inability to open or close a scissor and use the correct grip. Instead of looking at the whole class and writing, yes they can hold the scissor correctly, I can rather write, all of these are in order, and I can just by the 5 children write what I've observed. So here you go back to the potholes and you write down the kind of negative observations, because the others then will be seen as positive. Right. Then we have informal assessment. Now you'll see on our slide we have different key symbols. The first one is a tick, which means they can. The second one is half a tick, or a tick with a tail, and that means that they're starting to, it's not mastered yet. And then the last one is a cross, which means they have not or they cannot. Do you think that a school should have assessment instruments, like documents and things in place? Or could every teacher do whatever they like in their class?
I do believe that there should be assessment instruments that is used throughout the school. So if you and I are both with the grade or the 3 to 4 year old groups, you've got your class, I've got my class, our assessment instruments need to be the same. Our forms that we use need to be the same. so that we all do the same thing. It sometimes happens that a child moves over to your class or vice versa, or I am not available, I go on sick leave, somebody stands in for me. Having a standard form that everybody uses for their specific age group makes it so much easier. So yes, there has to be some kind of control that everybody does the same thing.
This causes a lot of unhappiness within preschools, because you can imagine if I have to invigilate for another teacher and she has her own idea and her own way of doing stuff, and I do stuff the way I like. It's going to take me more than an hour just to figure out where she files her things, how she plans her things, what's her class list look like, how does she assess these children, and what should be assessed. So it's better to have that universal standard. So principal owners and owners of schools, make sure that there's one standard for each class, for each age group, and that you actually train your staff in-house how to use those tools and instruments. So they would, if you are informally, exactly what the word says, you didn't set up a test, it just happened by chance, informally, the children are talking and you realize that this child speaks very softly. You can't hear what the child is saying, even in free play. Then in your notes, you will say, under the ability to communicate, you would write there, observation, child, whatever, speaks very softly. And here you are testing it for the second time. You saw it a week or so ago. You test it for a second time, and you can see they're starting to speak a little bit louder if you keep on reminding them to. So it's half a tick. And by the end of the term, just before the report cards go out, you will then formally see if they can do that. So this whole process, as you said, is repetition, 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 embedded knowledge.
Yes, and you don't immediately start with informal assessment. You first have to observe, let them do stuff, let them play around, let them do their things, observe, and then only can we go into informal assessment. Just as you don't jump to formal assessment straight away. After a lot of repetition, you can actually now see, okay, let's just see how these guys are doing. Can they almost, or they can't. And once again, this is part of the continual assessment process. This is not our final assessment yet.
Great. So the last one that we have here is F. We talked about informal assessment. This really happens informally. It's not something that you planned. You didn't set it up. You didn't arrange for it to happen. It happened during play and during the activities that you had created and designed for them. So you are going to tick if they can, if they cannot, or if they are starting to show this ability. Formal assessment is our F, or F for formal assessment. Here it's after you've repeated observation, after you've repeated informal, repetition, and then we would use the round robin method here, and we would also here start using the preschool international keys for assessment. So some people say, no, I only have 3, and another one says, no, I use the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the other one says, I don't know what's the star for, I don't use the star. Please hear me very clearly when I say this. When there's a form that is an international form, I mean it's an international standard, like when we drive on our South African roads, when we see a sign with a circle, a red circle that says 60, we don't say, I see the sign, but I'm not going to use the sign, I will be driving 85. There's a standard for a reason, so that other people also understand. It's a key for other people to have insight into your assessment. So these 4 things under formal assessment, the star for excellence, the smiley face for is extremely well done but not mastered yet, the platonic or the flat little face, that one says they're getting there but it's not all there yet, and the frowny face is I'm really worried. There's something that needs to be reviewed and assessed and improved upon. So if you could maybe give us a technique, because as a teacher, I'm already overwhelmed. I hear repeated, plan. I've got a class of 24 children. How do you want me to do this every day? Could you give our viewers a tool, something that they could use that is fun and that they could use to do assessment with?
Okay. So remember your formal assessment that you have, this is the one that ultimately is going to help you to get your formal mark that goes onto the report card. So this is not something you can skip, it's something that you have to do. Remember, we spoke about continual assessment, so we keep giving the child another chance, another chance, another chance. We've done informal and we say, okay, we think they are ready now to do formal assessment. Rule number 1, you never tell the children, today we're going to test you, because a test invokes fear. So this is something that you are going to plan, but the children won't know about. And a method that we use that works really, really well is the round robin method of managing your class. And basically what we do is we set up workstations in class. So let's say you have 4 workstations with 5 children at each workstation. The first one will be Legos, the other one will be a worksheet, that one will be clay, and then a puzzle. All right. So I want to assess the children's ability, various abilities that I want to do, but I only have 5 puzzles, or I only have 5 pairs of scissors, etc. This method helps you with that. So what we do, and it's a fun way to do, we take our theme that we have. Let's say our theme is on the farm. Then I choose my first table to be the cow table, the second table to be the chicken table, the third table to be the horse, and the last one the sheep. And I make a nice picture of a horse and a cow and a sheep and a whatever for each of the workstations. So I have a cow station, a horse station, etc. Then I make little cards with the same picture that I laminate because I want to use it again. And in a playful way, I play the game where the children each have to come and select a card. And once they've all selected a card, they've got to find the picture on the tables that suit their cards. So what happens now is your class of 20 each has a specific place to go to. So maybe I'm going to be assessing the child's ability to cut a piece of paper. I want to check for directionality. I want to check their fine motor skills, their grip, etc. I can focus on these 5 children while the rest of the class are all busy. They've all got an activity to keep themselves busy with without being disruptive to what I am doing. Once I've assessed these 5 children, I can either move on to another workstation and assess whatever that has been set up to do, or I can play the game again. I can get them all back, they all choose another card and they move to another workstation. Or I can get them all up, stand up, move to the next station. And in such a way, without a lot of drama, I can actually assess the children formally on whatever it is that I set out to do. And this can be done for every theme. So, you know, eventually if you keep everything nicely stacked away, next year you just take out your round robin theme cards again and you can do it again in your class.
Definitely. It really does work very well. And as you said, it saves resources. And besides saving resources, it gives you time to plan. You'll never leave a group alone with scissors, for example. So they'll cut each other's hair and clothes and whatnot. So, you know, I set myself up to be at this round robin station. I'm at the cow station today, and I will rotate my whole class so that they have a few minutes in each area, which develops their skills in all the others. It keeps them so that they're not bored, and it also, we really have a problem with 2 scenarios that we get with children. The first one is that they tend to only do what they like. So that they're not exposed to the other things, because you give them a table and they can choose whatever. They'll always choose the thing they like. So at the end, that child cannot build a puzzle because he wasn't exposed to building puzzles. In this way, they all get a chance to do all of those activities with the least amount of resources. Then also with that, you get children that the one is a more dominant child than the other, and they always play together. So they never get a chance to play with other friends. By getting them to pick these cards, they end up sitting next to a friend which they actually now like and get along with, have to interact with, which they never thought they would because they have only one friend at school. So that social interaction is a little bit mixed up, and then also the activities themselves. It's not a child that's left to do whatever they want to do. They physically are still busy building skills.
Absolutely.
Right, so that is our round robin method, and that's what we really, really would advise people who have big classes to do, is to set up formal assessment stations, take your book, have it with you, have a class list with all the children's names, and then write what you'd like to know. If it's cutting with scissors, because you're going to get parents when it comes to the report cards that are going to say, but my child can cut with scissors. That is very true. They can maybe cut with scissors, but they can't cut on a crooked line. They can't cut out a shape, because that was what you were observing and assessing at that point in time. So even on your report cards, you have to be specific. Count out loud, not just count to 10. Able to count objects. count backwards. So be specific on your report cards, because you need to make the parent understand where they're able, not able, or what still needs help and assistance. So in your year planner, you are going to plan for all of this. On the first day when they come in, you're going to have a fun day, and that week you know half of the children aren't going to come to school because they're still planning on which school to go to, and people weren't very well organized. So you make that a fun time where they get to know their teachers and their environment and the rules of their class and the routine. And then when that first week is passed, then it's actually week 1. So that's your adaptation week. And then you have week 1, and week 1, 2 weeks after each other, you do the theme My Body, for example. You start with what they know and you teach from here, not from something that they don't know. And you always teach for 3 groups of children. So you're going to do auditive, visual, or kinesthetic. So make sure that you are aware of what you're teaching. I just want to let you guys know that we have to change batteries after an hour. So what we are going to do is in 10 minutes time, we will have a countdown from our IT person. Please don't leave the webinar. You can do a bio break quickly if you want to, but leave the webinar up and running. And then we will let you know when we're back on, so that everybody can quickly go to the toilet or have something to drink or just eat something so that you don't fall over. Then we can go on from there, and we know we're not going to miss out on anything. So use a what's when at your school. Make sure that you plan for the entire year, and plan it in August, as we said previously. And also make sure that you know when the assessment is going out to the parents, because in term 2, you have to set up parent meetings. So know that those parents will be available for you and when the teacher will be available to assess.
And you also mentioned earlier today in another session that this isn't something that the owner or the manager of the school should do on their own. This should be a group effort where all of the teachers get together and we plan the year in advance. It provides buy-in, and it also gets different perspectives, because you might forget that this and this and this needs to be slotted in as well. So we do suggest that when you do your yearly planner for the year in advance, start in August. So your August is around the corner. Sit down, start planning, because you might expect an expansion of your school. So you need to plan how many groups of what age group will we plan for, etc. And then plan for the year in advance.
Oh, I agree. Please make sure that you make your teachers part of the school. And if you really want them to cooperate and give more than you ever thought, then give them the opportunity to show what they can do. We have a tendency to say, I know how to do it, so I'll just do it and it's done. We are going to talk about what should be on a progress report card. Now, there's many misconceptions about this, and people think they can just give out one at the end of the year, and they don't really even consider what is needed and why there are 4 different types of report cards. So if you have a pen and paper, I really want to advise you to start writing or look at the key concepts that we have here. What should appear on a progress report card? So we've listed this for you, and it goes into a next slide. Your center's name. If your school's name is Little Blessings, make sure that it's on your report card. It's a document that you are giving out, which is also an advertisement for who you are as a teacher and who your school is. Then the learners' names would normally be the formal names that you would find on their ID or their birth certificates, and you could, in brackets, if it's a child that's name is Christian and they call him Tian, put his name in brackets, his nickname in brackets. The age group, and remember about the ALDA book, we can't just say 4 to 5 years. We're going to have to say advancing to grade R. And then student evaluation chart. You are going to weigh your children. You're going to measure their length. You're going to look how many days absent they are. And that is crucial now, especially with our merge into DBE. Dominance profile is where we look if they're right-handed or left-handed, or if they have a right eye dominance. So there's a test and a profile test that you can do to ascertain those things. Ambidextrous means that they can use both hands. They can paint with this one and they can play basketball with this one. So they use both. And then all the elders should be listed in there, all 6 of them. So remember, they are color-coded, like E1 was red. So you will have E1 well-being, etc., on your report card. So the names of your learning areas will be there. And then the elder performance keys. I think sometimes that the parents don't understand this more than the teachers don't understand this. When a child is promoted to grade 1, suddenly they start getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on their report cards. And for me, if I win, I come first. So number 1 must be very good. So now my child in grade 1 gets 7s, and I freak out because my child is failing miserably. And actually, they flipped the chart. It's 7 is the best and 1 is the least. So if you can start already now to explain that concept, that scoring, that key element of assessment on your report cards, then the parents later on will also understand better. It's difficult for a parent. You gave my child a smiley face. What does that mean? Putting it in this concept and using that key allows a parent to understand almost what percentage and what's going on in a child's world. So we are also going to have our ALDA performance keys, and this is how it looks. So this is the ALDA performance key, and as you can see, it has all the indicators on. We never talk about the percentages. That's for a parent to understand and for a teacher to see between which parameters we are scoring. Then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we will also not have on our report card. As an ECD center, you need to have those 4 keys. As I said, you can't decide if you want them. They are a universal key. All ECDs in the world should have them. So we have the star, the smiley face, the platonic face, and the frowny face. And it explains each one. So a star is exemplary. The smiley face is it demonstrates solid understanding and skill. The platonic face says that he has not mastered it yet. He's starting to show progress. And then the other one says, I'm quite concerned about the developmental milestones because they are not being reached. So if you could put this onto your report card, then anybody would understand what the star stands for or the smiley face.
I think what the important thing is this is for the parent to understand. So when I open up my report card and I see my child got a straight face or a platonic face, what does it mean? By having the key there, I can see, well, it equates to a 3 or a 4 in the CAPS curriculum. And for most parents, it will make more sense to know it's in the 40 to 60% bracket. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and the percentages is just there to put it into perspective for the parent.
Yes.
It's not what you use on your report card. So no ECD practitioner should use a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or even percentages on your report card. That is just wrong.
It is definitely wrong. In ALDA, we don't use that. So going on, as I said, it moves on to the next slide. Number 9, those are emoticons that we use. The educator is supposed to give a general comment, and it should be learner specific. You're talking about a specific child, so you can't just put a flimsy everyday comment in there. You must talk to Stephne about Stephne. That's kind of, it's about this learner, so it's learner specific. Steph, do you have any advice for all those people struggling with English and they just can't cope, and you see in their report cards the tenses aren't right and the spelling is incorrect because it really reflects badly on the school and on the teacher? Is there something they could do to avoid that?
I think there are quite a few things that you can do. You can either have one person who does a quality check or types the report cards so the teacher can write it down in a Krom en Skeef English or Afrikaans or whatever language, but then somebody takes responsibility for making sure that it is in correct language. Or the group can get together, all the teachers can get together in a meeting and write down specific report card comments that will really work well. Somebody can type it up in the correct format and you can have that list with you. You can personalize something like that. So I can have a generic comment about specific skill sets and I can copy that by adding the name. Nathan shows blah, 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 and I copy it and I make sure that it is in line with, or that the grammar is correct. And on that, I really want to say there are very critical parents out there. And if they pick up a spelling error on your report card, they're going to think, but you can't even spell. How can you teach my child? And we want to prevent that from happening. So every piece of documentation that goes out to the parent must reek of excellence. So if you know that I'm a brilliant teacher, I really do my job well, but I struggle with my language, then ask for help. Get someone to quality check your work before it goes out to the parents.
And for those of you who make Google their best friend, you can do that as well. If you use any software program on your computer. It shows you a red squiggle that says the spelling is incorrect, or a green one which says the grammar is incorrect. Use spell check if you have to, and then write it down, personalize it. And if you don't have computers, use your cell phone. You can go and check. If you don't have that, buy yourself a dictionary. Make sure that the content of your report cards are contents filled with excellence. So we have a method that we're going to train and teach you on called the hamburger feedback method, and I really want to advise that everybody tries to implement this in their schools, because you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And telling a parent the whole time the child can't do this, or this is doesn't have this skill set, it puts them off, and they kind of feel you're vindictive towards their children, and it was never your objective or goal. You just wanted to help the child. Then your report card comments, as Steph said, have a list that you could use, so that would help with the English. Just personalize them from there. Date your report cards. It's a contract, it's a document, so make sure that the date that it's completed has a date on it. And then the term information, is it term 1, 2, 3, 4? Is it an adaptation report, a summative report, a cumulative report, or a progression report? And then make sure that the right parties sign on it, make a copy of it, and keep it in your portfolio of assessment. So these are the things that should be on a report card. If they're not there, then the report card is lacking.
Absolutely.
Okay, so please look that you have these 15 things. Now, why are report card comments so important?
Well, remember, I drop my child at your school every day. I'm not there to see. Now, as a mommy, I want to know that my child is amazing. I want to know if my child struggles. So your report card comment gives the parent an idea of the child's progress. Not just the parent, but the teacher as well. So your comment has to be learner specific. It has to be about the child. And when we do give comments, we've got a very good method, or a good rule of thumb that will always be constructive and help the parent. And we call that the hamburger feedback method. And if you look at the picture that we're going to share with you now, if you think of a hamburger, on the outside of your burger you have the two buns, the top half of the bun and the bottom half of the bun. And in between you've got the meat, you've got the stuff that makes the burger really good. So when we give feedback, we want to represent your report card comment in the same way. We start with the bun, which is our positive comment. Then we give the juicy stuff that is important. So we point out the mistakes or the challenges that needs to be addressed. And we finish it off with another bun, another positive comment. So looking at the picture there, we always start with appreciate the child, then address the challenging behavior, but give support or give a comment that will support the constructive change. So let's look at Tebogo's report card comment. It's a pleasure to have Tebogo in my class. Now, for me, I'm Tebogo's mom. That is like, oh wow, my child is amazing. So it's a pleasure to have Tebogo in my class. But don't lie. Don't write stuff that is not true. Okay, so it's really, I really do enjoy having Tebogo in my class. Then my challenge. Although keeping quiet seems to be a challenge. So in a nice way, I'm telling the mom that the child speaks too much, or that I'm struggling to get him to be quiet and listen. The third one, here's the positive one again, but he really shows great leadership potential. Now, what is the mom going to remember? She's going to remember that my child is awesome. He's got leadership potential, but I just need to help him to get over this thing where he talks a bit much. So going back to the class, now imagine this is now not a report card comment, but I'm interacting with a child. I gave them a worksheet to work with. So now I want to give feedback. I see that Tebogo is not coloring in within the lines. So instead of just going and say, Tebogo, color in the lines, I can start off by saying, wow, love, I love the colors that you are using. Okay, immediately the child feels good. Now I say, but remember, stay within the line. There goes my challenging or addressing the challenging behavior. Finish off with something positive. Now I want you to try the flower and remember to stay within the lines. I know you can do it. And this is a very good method that you can use in any situation in life where you give feedback. So going back to the report card comment, it's good practice, and I would encourage you, whenever you write your report card comment at the end, always remember the hamburger. Start with something positive and uplifting, then address the challenge, and finish off with something that will support constructive change of our challenge.
Right, so as you can see, it takes quite a while to construct your report card. It's not something that happens overnight. So in your planning, you have a kind of a 2-week frame where the teacher is preparing herself, taking her previous observation and informal and formal notes, and looking at each child specifically and trying to find comments for each of those elder learning areas that really suits the child and would in the end help the parent to know where to help the child. And also, if that child is moving on to another school, it's a true reflection. You can't keep on telling parents you just have little stars everywhere and your child is an angel. Some children really need halos, but some children need some help. You really, really have to understand that it is the truth. You can't lie, because if that child is sent on with a star where it says is able to hold his pencil correctly, or a pen or a coloring crayon or a wax crayon, and the teacher in that other school or in the other class assesses that and they don't have the grip, you look like the pawpaw. And the school looks like one of these fly-by-night schools that doesn't know what they're talking about. And your heart was just to share with the parent how beautiful their child is. Please make use of this method. Positive, negative, and positive. Now the different types, we said there are 4 report cards. Now the first report card is it attacks you when the year starts. That's what I always say. You can't give feedback at the end of term 1 on that little child sitting in front of you. You can't, because you haven't had enough time to repeat things and explain things and to assess things properly. So then you are lying. You can't give a report card out with a truthful representation. But what you can do is answer the call of any mom or dad or guardian out there. And that is to do what? It is to explain to a parent that my child is
Happy.
Shanana, my child is okay. So we call this the adaptation report. I've adapted to my new school, to my new teacher, to my new friends, to my new environment. I've adapted to my new classroom. So it's important that the parents receive that little bit of encouragement at the beginning of the year. And you do this 2 or 3 weeks after the school has started. So you're just trying to find momentum, and suddenly your first report card hits you. That's why I say this is the attack report card. So how has the child adapted? You're talking about emotions. You are physically talking about E1 or well-being. Is my child well? Is it well with my soul? That's kind of what we're talking about. So we're going to focus on, in the routines that we have at the school, are they now happy in those routines? If I give them something new, something challenging, are they coping? Or are they crying a lot? Have they settled in with their friends and the things happening at school? So the whole adaptation report doesn't even look like any of the other reports. We don't use the formal keys. We only use observational feedback. Only E1, and this happens very early in the year. So here's an example of an adaptation report. I told you elders are color-coded. This has got nothing to do with color codes. That's just for beauty and to make it look nice. You will see at the top, it says the child's name. It says when they started at the school. It says in which age group we are at. It says that we're only using E1 well-being and that this is only observational notes. It's nothing formal. So we start off and we say, how does the child appear when they arrive? So we observe this for a week or 2 and we see, the child is crying every morning when mommy drops the child off. But when daddy drops the child off, there aren't any tears. So as a teacher, my advice would be, could daddy not rather drop the little one off? We see that the little one is very, very stuck on being with mommy, and that causes an emotional rift. It takes a long time to dry up all those tears. Please let daddy drop the little one off. So this is a love letter to a parent. It tells them they are okay at school. Even if they cry, we wipe those tears dry and they are fine in a little while. How do they depart? How have they settled into the routine? Can they use the toilet constructively? Now, with babies, how many nappies do they have in a day? When we talk about are they consuming their meals, how many bottles is your little one drinking? Do they enjoy exploring different foods so that they don't enjoy the solids? Things like that, you have to make it age specific. But it's a love letter that's going back to the parent to explain that this child is okay. So we'll look at outdoor activities and who are my friends. Stephanie only plays with one friend every day and she and Frikkie get along so well. Or she plays in big groups and she doesn't like to be on her own. Or she tends to like to play on her own. So a truthful reflection of the child you see in front of you for those few weeks. Do they wake up happy or grumpy? And then activities in school that they like. And then that little note back, that hamburger feedback note to the mommy, so that the mommy knows this child is okay. And then this report card goes out, the adaptation report for term 1. That leaves you with half of that term still left. And what would you do with the extra time?
You start assessing for your second term report card. So in the middle of term 1, once the children have settled, you actually already start gathering evidence for your second report card that happens at the end of term 2. So it actually buys you some time, because it's a lot that goes into term 2 report cards. And if you take a look at the term 2 report card, it looks completely different from what we have here. This one is observational notes. Please be careful when you fill this in that you check your spelling, you check your grammar, because this one is not just tick, 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 tick with one little bit of a comment. There are comments throughout.
And you could actually have an editable format of this, and you could type in the comments if that's going to make you feel more comfortable. But then even myself, I would like to see the teacher's handwriting somewhere. Even if you just then in the general notes write your general comments at the end of the day and then sign off at the bottom. So the second report card that we have that comes up in term 2, this is the doozy. This is the biggest and the most comprehensive one that you will get. This one really, really takes everything together and sums it up. Summative report. So it's the summary of everything that's been assessed. It is comprehensive. It needs evidence, photo evidence. It needs paper evidence where they've cut and pasted and colored. And it will always have at the end of the day a parent-teacher meeting to explain the way forward and what needs to happen. So you will plan this so that you will have a parent conference, and at the end of the parent conference you will see the parents, or you will set up and diarize appointments with each individual parent. So we're going to look at the summative report now. Remember how the adaptation report looked. And now this is the summative report. Totally different ball game. Can you see at the top of the report card, it refers to the ALDA key, and there is the universal key. It should be somewhere on your report card. And then we have the learner dominance profile, where we can see if they're left or right-handed or whatever the case might be. And there we have their where we do reporting on how much they weigh, how many days absent, and who else should sign on this document. If you look on the right, I said ALDAs have keys and colors. So here we have ALDA 1, vroeë leerontwikkelingsareas. That is the pronunciation of ALDA in Afrikaans. So here we have ALDA 1, and ALDA 1, if you think back on the slides, were red. So we have made this color-coded. You don't have to make it color-coded. You could print this in black and white, as long as the headings suit what is happening. It's E1, and everybody knows it's about well-being. And here you're going to see all the criteria is listed. For this learner, what you need to know regarding their well-being for this term. And over there we have our emoticons. We have the frowny face, the platonic face, the smiley face, and we have the star. No 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s. Only that explanation is found at the top. And this is one page. So if you look at this very carefully, our report cards are an A4 page, and we fold them in half like a booklet. And then we print double-sided so we can get more on. And what we actually have done is we've made those little squares exactly big enough so we can stick on stickers. So when the teacher has summed up her observation of this child, looking at observation, informal and formal, and everything she's done, she comes to a conclusion that there's, say for instance, for the first one, I have for observation a 2, and a 3. The second one, I have a 3, and a 3. And the last one, I have a 3, and a 4. On average, the performance was a 3. So I would then go and by 3, I would put it on the sticker on the spot to indicate that. You could type it in, you could write it in, you could tick it, you could do whatever you like. For us as a school, that works well. But there are more pages, and it's quite a thick, comprehensive report card that covers every single ALDA. This is only one portion of the ALDA. So we talked about parent-teacher conference. Steph, how does this work and why? Why do we do this?
We have to give feedback to the parent. Remember, there's a classic saying that says it takes a village to raise a child. And we need to get parents on board. If there is an issue with a child, we need to communicate and we need to come up with a plan together on how we're going to address that. We just, sometimes it's no need for remedial, but we need to tell the parent that your child is really amazing. You're doing a good job. For a parent, there's nothing so nice to hear that their children are fine and they are doing well. You might have a child in your class that is exceptionally clever and they progress so fast. This is something you need to communicate with the parent and encourage them for enrichment activities for that child to prevent them from getting bored. Another thing that this is important for is we keep record that we did communicate this with a parent. So we have documents that when a parent comes to me, you come to me and we talk about your child and we speak about it. There will be a document that we fill in with the details, the date, etc. What was decided or said, etc. And then we both sign. And this becomes very important later on. Let's say there was a remedial opportunity that we identified, we spoke to the parent about it, and the parent did not adhere to the commitment that they made. Nobody can turn around later on and say, but the school did not do their job. So this is something that is really important for you as a school as well, to cover your bases, to know that you did your part, that it's on record, this is what was decided, and you can keep the parent accountable. So if mommy says, I will start taking you for occupational therapy in next term because I'll have money then, that you've got it on record, that you can follow up. Did you do this? What did the occupational therapist say, etc.?
Everything we do is in the best interest of the child. We're not concerned with what the parent is all about or the school or the teacher is all about. Our objective and our goal is to help the child to be the best possible little human being that they can be. So with a parent-teacher conference, you're going to use your POA, which stands for Portfolio of Assessment. And in there, it's a file that you should have. Some people use different mechanisms to file it in, so they have hanging files, others have lever arc files. You do what your school can afford and what you are able to do, but then you have your 4 terms, and in there you will put the evidence of the child's work, and you will put a copy of the progress report and the teacher-parent conference with all the signatures and stuff on there. It's a track record, and you have to make sure you keep those locked away in a cupboard or in a closed-off place because of POPI compliance. We have to realize that POPI compliance is now, it's a legal document that we all have to have. Our schools are operating differently. Businesses are operating differently, and ECD centers as well. POPI is about the sharing of personal information. So on here we have the child's name, we have the class of the child, we have their age group. It's personal information. It's against the law to just share this with anybody. And somebody could walk into a classroom if there's a file lying around and it's not locked away and not secure, or there's a flash drive with something in your computer, and take people's personal information. So we have to know what POPI compliance is all about. So as I said, the good news is we are doing training on a lot of things for Vangasali to help you register your schools. First thing we're going to do is we are going to have a free on-the-couch session so that you understand the whole Vangasali documentation process, registering with the Department of Education. And then we've identified, by help of other schools that were struggling, which of these areas need short courses. So you could do that. It's a double whammy. You could do it, and you could get the certificate for it, and then you can go and implement it. Or you could do it and use it as CPTD points, continual professional training points for SACE. So ensure that everything is on your documentation, and that these things and your portfolio of assessment is behind closed or locked doors. Right. Could you elaborate a little bit? I keep on saying that this is the SCRAT report. Do you know that little rat in Ice Age? He keeps on collecting nuts and collecting nuts. Now this is the accumulation of all his nuts. It's the accumulative report. So what is this report card in term 3 all about?
Okay, so this one lies obviously in between term 2 and 4. In term 2, we told the parent what the child can and what they cannot do. And now we start with intervention. We do more activities, we teach them more, we help them, we take them for extramurals, we take them for extra remedial, and we keep gathering evidence to see how are they progressing. Is it going better? Are we back on track? Remember, we've got an end destination where we want to go to, so we need to check the gauges the whole time. Are we getting there? So in this report card, we're going to gather a lot of information to see, are we actually on track? Have we addressed the stuff that we identified as an issue? Are we busy with that? Because failing to do that will just leave that gap. That gap is not going to be filled. And for now, it's not an issue, but later on it will.
Sure.
So this is getting evidence on using term 2 as our baseline. So let's say a child has a problem with fine motor skills. Now we're checking the whole time. Fine motor skills, fine motor skills, fine motor skills, fine. Yes, there we go. It clicked, it's in place, and we can move on. So this is probably the best progress report or gathering of evidence of the whole thing, because we've adapted, we've identified the issues, and we're working towards that. And at the end of your term 3, when you give your cumulative report, it's not as long and detailed as your term 2 one, but it gives a parent a very good indication of, okay, we're getting there, we're almost there. Because remember, we want to progress to a next level. We don't want to progress if we haven't mastered everything that needs to be done in this one.
I agree wholeheartedly. So the cumulative report is much shorter. It sums up the things that you've been working on and if it's working or not. If it's not working, then we have to find another way to help that child. It is not about the end destination. It is about the journey. So here is an example. Now it looks a little bit different. You will see it's also color coded. So we're in E3, so it's purple, and it's all about communication, and all the criteria there is what we found within this book under the different age groups. So we still have our key, we still have our general comments, but you will see that our addressing of these concepts is a little bit more elaborate. It explains a little bit more in depth. As I said, previously can count up to 10. Now we're in the next one, can count objects. And now we're in the third term, and we are saying can count objects and sort them into groups, for example. So it is an elaboration on something that we have progressively done, and this is the feedback that we are getting. So that's another example of the report card, and you will see the keys that we are still using there and who is involved in the communication aspect. So this is how a report card should actually look. Now our fourth one is the progressive report. I progress, I am promoted, I go to the next class. Now this is the final summary. We started off, we have adapted emotionally, we are fine. Now this little being that we have in our class, we've assessed them and assessed them and assessed them, observed, informal, formal, and we have identified in term 2 and summed up everything that still needs work. Term 3, we went and we accumulated all the evidence. We've helped. Is this really helping, or do we have to reinvent the wheel here? And now in the fourth one, it's a final summary. Throughout the year, this is where we were. We started off with a 2. We're at a 4. We're very happy. This learner can be promoted to the next level. So I think it's quite important for you to note that most schools are opening up their registration. Say, for instance, for grade 1. Earlier and earlier, because they are filled up so quickly that people can't find space. We've actually had people camp outside one of our schools so that they started sleeping there overnight with a little tent so that they have space for their grade 1 for the next day. And I believe this is a tendency all over South Africa. So March, April, you will start giving out term 2's report card. And that report card will normally go to the school that they want to enroll in for the next year. And then when they've gone and you've transferred them, you will have to provide the progressive report. It's almost like the matric results. You know that they only take into consideration for university what happens in the mid-year exams. They don't even look at the end-year exams. It's the same scenario here. So the progressive report is just giving that final feedback. This is where we're at with this learner. So here's an example. You will see we are here in E2, which is blue, and E3, which is purple. And then also, once again, it's a total summary of what we've seen within the ALDA book, and there's progression. We use the stickers, or we use whatever indicators we'd like to use on the block. So that gives you a good idea of how this term report card looks. I think people are very highly mistaken when they say that there's no admin involved in teaching. I think it's It is the foundation on which we are built is paperwork. Think we buy more paperwork, tools and utensils than anybody else, and stationery. You have to have the right types of documents, and you need to know how to use them. So once again, in-house training is important. If you want somebody in your school to do it in a specific way, you need to show them how to do it, either through a manual or a video or sitting them down and working it through. So those interactive workshops at your school really help set the standard. So the types of documents that you're going to use an observation sheet, an informal sheet, a formal sheet. You are going to have your teacher-parent conference. Your report cards are going to be on a specific standard, so everybody knows what to expect when it comes to paperwork. Steph, is there any legal implication to how long you should keep any type of document in a business?
It depends. You always have to keep things. There is specific time in business that you need to keep your documentation, specifically where SARS is concerned. They can come back for an audit at any time, and then you need to be able to provide the details. The same applies to teaching. So if I have evidence of Tebogo that I've kept together in this year, and I've got a final report card now, and he progresses to the next year, I have to still keep that evidence that I accumulated throughout the year for that child for 4 years. And now imagine this year's children 4 years, next year's children 4 years, next year's children 4 years. So all the time we're stacking up evidence. So you need to find a safe but creative way to keep the evidence so for 4 years before you can get rid of it. So there are many ways. We like to use these boxes with the hanging files, and you keep everything in there, and then you just seal it and put it away in a cupboard, nicely marked, so if I have to go back to it. And then after 4 years you can destroy it. But you cannot just chuck it in a dustbin, because then the personal information is out there. You have to really get rid of it, shred it, get rid of it properly, to be in line with POPI Act. So yes, it's standard practice to keep documentation in business, in schools, etc. For schools, we have to keep our documents for 4 years.
It's the same thing with the COVID documents. I know I've had a lot of questions regarding this. Should I still keep all of those screening stuff and things? Yes, for 4 years, you have to. If there now is a court case against you because the child got COVID at your school and the parent feels they want to take it out on somebody because there's now some or other delay or some or other something, you need evidence to prove that you've followed all the steps that you can, if you could. It's going to be the same here. It doesn't have to be an expensive option. You could use an old box. Just make sure you label it properly so that when you need to access it, you don't have to go through 4,000 files. You could bind them off. You could use these male and females, those silver ties. You could use wool to tie them up. Whatever works for your school and is cost effective, but label it on the outside. Put a A4 page that you can clearly see whose information is on the inside, and then stack them in your archive. So completing of your learner profile, every single child in your school needs a learner profile. Those of you who haven't heard this word before, it's called LURITZ, L-U-R-I-T-Z. Now, in Department of Education, every single child has a LURITZ number. This means they're registered with the Department of Education, and a specific number, like an ID number, has been given to them. From grade R to matric, every child has one number. It is transferred with them. And the SA SAM system, everything that happened to them, in our old days we called it the etlap. The teachers would write these big files that they would fold with all your stuff, and that tells how many times you were in detention and why you became a prefect. It's the same thing, but it's now from birth to grade 12. So your LURITZ number, that child will have to get. You can only get a LURITZ number once you are registered with the Department of Education. So you first need an EMIS number, which is the number for your school. And then after that, you will register every learner that you have in your center from baby all the way up for a LURITZ number. And that number will remain with them, plus their SSAM's record will follow them till matric and past matric.
So the LURITZ number, is that generated by SSAM's or by the department and then sent via email or something to the school?
Well, basically at the moment how it works is you can only get LURITZ numbers for grade R because that is our compulsory sector. But the moment SASAMS is in play and everybody's on it, you're going to have Luritz numbers for the rest. So it still does come from the Department of Education, and they do communicate that. They send an email and you have your class list with all the new numbers. And when you transfer your child, you need to state the Luritz number. And when you also have report cards, it's good to have them on the Luritz number. Or if there's something, there was an incident and you have a child that grabbed another child in grade R and bashed their head on the floor repeatedly and yelled profane things at them. That would be an incident, and it would be written on an incident form. The Luritz number would appear on that, and it would go with that child until those emotional issues and psychological issues have been resolved.
So this is a discussion for a different day, but just going back to SASAMS, so an incident like that will be recorded on the SASAMS management system, and like you said, it goes with the child throughout.
Yes, and I think what they're also planning on doing, if I've been in a few of the discussions, is they're planning, just like they've taken CAPS and put it onto SASAMS, you actually get different weighings of how much you can ask for a test from grade R up to matric. They're going to be doing a similar thing, but more elder focused, where they can show you need to show us by this time that the child can use a pair of scissors. But that is coming because they need specialists to write that. So it will phase in, and they will help first understand the system, get everything on board. Evidence that needs to be collected, types of evidence, photo evidence is one of them. Observational evidence, you need somebody to say, I saw him do it. So another teacher that observes it with you could actually put a signature down, or whatever the case might be, or written or paperwork that you would add to the file. Pre and post moderation, somebody in your school needs to get training on, before I give out a formal task, is this task age appropriate? Or you're going to get children having to write and do sums, and that isn't age appropriate. Or you're going to have babies having to thread beads that they can stick up their nose and choke on. So somebody has to do an assessment beforehand to make sure that it's safe for the child and that it is age appropriate. And somebody afterwards has to come and check before the report card goes out that everything that is said there is up to standard. Because sometimes, as Steph said just now, you feel very harsh about a child and the way they're acting. You can't reflect that in a report card. Your personal feelings has nothing to do with the report card itself. So make sure that somebody just checks you up and you don't say, this little brat in my class, you can't speak like that. So make sure somebody is there to censor you. That's kind of, for the moderation process. And then for the term, it's good to have theme files. So you work hard on making those theme boards and the theme table. Get those things laminated. It costs money, but then you have to do them once. And you can just put a little bit of things together, or you have to repeatedly do it over and over again. And under term 1, put all those lacquer themes. So we're doing on the farm, in my school, at my home, and put all of those theme things in there so that you can reuse them later on. And then elder curriculum unpacking. Take your elder, sit, read the book, unpack it, understand the 6 elders. We've actually done this, and we've spoken about it on numerous of our previous webinars. We have a company called Teach Tools, and Amelia and myself and a lot of our team has been working very hard on the curriculum. We had to change a lot of it now due to the migration, but we are going to be launching the stuff within Teach Tools for people who want them. And today we're actually going to start with the first portion of this. We are going to make our report cards available to be purchased by people out there, and it will be editable. So if you don't like something, you can go change it. If you have the SpongeBob class, you could change the theme that might, in our case, be a butterfly to SpongeBob. So it suits your school, and you can put your school logo and school names on, and you can actually see for the different age groups, what type of report cards we have available. Transferring a child, this has never been anything that you've done in the past. Many schools don't do this, but you have to be able to transfer a child to another school. I have to make sure that this is a very confidential document and that school actually asks me for it. So say, for instance, my child's in your school, Stephanie, and I want to put my child in Little Northies, which is a primary school, and this child's finishing up with grade R. How am I going to transfer this child?
So what's going to happen? You're going to go to Little Northies. You are going to enroll your child there. they are going to mention to you that they are going to get information from my school with regards to the child and the family and the parents and whatever, everything that is on the transfer transcript. So the parent will be aware of the fact that the information from my school that I've gathered, and we'll look at the transfer transcript now, but it gives the new school information about the child's progress, any remedial actions we've had to take, any family indicators that are present. I almost want to say in the interest of the child, so that they don't have to start from scratch to gather information. Then they know this child is dyslexic, for example, and this is the kind of remedial work we've been doing, and they can build on that. They can use that when they have to place the child in a class, etc. But with that comes sensitive financial information about the parent, etc. So the new school will inform you that they're going to get information from my school, which I am not allowed to give to the parent to give. It's something that the school has to come and get from me because it's such sensitive information. So there are lots of legal implications. One needs to be very, very careful that you don't contravene the POPI Act here, that you do something wrong. But it is necessary for the transfer to take place successfully, that type of information is given to the new school in the interest of the child.
So the purpose of this is to make sure that this child's information reaches the school and every document that needs to go to the other school as well. So you will see at the top it has a POPI Act disclaimer to protect yourself and the parents themselves too. It also says this is a confidential document and it may not be handed to the parent. It must go from school to school, and normally what there is there's a POPI Act form that a school applies for. Say for instance, Little Northies now sends me a form, and in this form they ask me to please make sure that I send the transfer transcript. I sign off and say, between the two of us, I'm going to send you the information. So all of this information will be in there. It will tell you exactly the last report card or the report card you're attaching, when they started, when they ended, the financial information, have the parents been paying properly, are they in arrears or in debt, any general things, doctor's letters, those will all appear here. And something that you need to get, which I didn't even had, and I had this for such a long time, is you need to have a stamp made, a school stamp. The Department of Education is very set on school stamps with your address, your logo, your registration numbers, all of those things on, so that on documentation to make it more authentic, it has a stamp. So have a stamp made, and then you will stamp your transfer transcript, and that will be emailed to the contact person on the other side. So you give your center's information and it will go to that specific person. And it also in the disclaimer says if it reaches the wrong person, to destroy it or to delete it. Right, so that is important. The transfer transcript happens when this child goes to another school. Don't have to fill in a transfer transcript when they go to another class inside your school. Not necessary. You just transfer your POA. If they're going to another preschool or nursery school or primary school, you will use the transfer transcript. Now, grade R need to knows. Grade R is a little bit different. As we said, they already fall under the Department of Education and they're using CAPS. So they have subjects where we have learning areas, that are ALDA learning areas. They have formal assessment tasks. These are tests that they have to do. They are already on SA SANS, and you have to upload their things onto SA SANS. For everything they do to make up 100% to pass that test, there's little pieces that they have to collect and get scores for to make up the 100%. That's called the weighings. And then for the things that you have done, you will have to submit and upload it. So there's evidence that needs to be submitted and uploaded to the department, because this child can actually fail grade R. And it is crucial that you understand the CAPS curriculum, that you're using the CAPS latest curriculum for grade R, that you're using a CAPS compliant curriculum out there, somebody written a curriculum and you're using that, and that for every term you understand this document will be changing constantly, because every year the department on SA SANS will give you new formal tasks and they will give you new weighings. You can't use the past years. You have to use every year's which is relevant for that year, for that age group. So grade R report cards are much different to...
And the weighings are shared on SA SAMS, am I correct?
Yes, they're only available there. You won't find them anywhere else. You can't just send a child to school. People are fighting the fact, and they are saying, I want to send them sooner, or I want to send them later. There is an age-appropriate time to send a child to school. Now, this has caused so much conflict, so much unhappiness, so much unnecessary thinking too much about an easy, simple topic. Now, if I'm going to break this down, I want to break it down very quickly. We have in our school 0 to 1 years. Now, this child starts walking at 8 months. I'm not going to transfer them to the 1 to 2 year class. They're used to these friends. They're used to the teacher. I can't relocate them in the middle of the year because now suddenly they had a birthday or they started walking. The same thing is for grade RR and grade R. A parent can't come in June and say, my child has now had a birthday, put them in the grade R class. No. Those children have developmental things they've got to reach. Give you an example out of maths, if you can, Steph, where we, in the smaller groups, we talk about shapes, and then what happens in grade R? Just to the concept of shapes.
No, it changes completely. It becomes a lot more complicated. So this little child that you've now forced into the grade R class missed a whole concept of shapes. So where we were previously, we spoke about a triangle and a square and a circle. Now it suddenly becomes a cube and a cylinder and a pyramid. They don't even have the basic concept because we took them out during the time where they were supposed to get that, and so we've skipped something, and it really makes it very difficult and very hard for the teacher as well as the child. So parents, we sometimes get determined parents that insist, but my child is ready for grade R. There is a specific reason why a child goes to grade R at a specific time in their lives. And yeah, like I think you will explain the small fish in the big pond just now, but you might have a child that's slightly ahead of the others now, but put him in a next phase that he's not supposed to be in. He's all of a sudden, he's nothing because the others know a lot more. And later on, we're going to have lots of issues as well. And it's not just with math, it's with every learning area. If we skip even just a 2 or a 3 month bracket, and now you expect them to know, the foundation is not there.
For sure. So the impact of them pressurizing you to put this child into another group is so severe for the child that it is detrimental. It's a fight that you're going to have to put up, and you're going to have to explain yourself. Now, I want to give you some advice that really worked for me. In my 4 to 5 year group, even before the children moved on to grade R, I showed my parents, I had a show and tell with my parents, and we sat down and I showed them the grade R curriculum, and I compared it to the 4 to 5 curriculum, and I said, your child needs this foundation before we can start building the bricks onto this house. And if you take your child, because the age now says he's in June, he's a little bit older, he misses all of this. Do you understand the impact it has on this? And you will not believe how insightful that was to the parents. They stopped nagging. They stopped. And they trusted the process. So in our schools, we have 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and 5 to 6. So grade R is the year in which they turn 5 and move on to 6. So if you go and look at what the Department of Education is saying, they say 4 and 6 months there. It's 5. They've moved already. So 5 to 6 is our grade R group. And when they go to school, it is the year that they turn. So they might still be 5 in January, but it's the year that they then turn.
I think that's the easiest. If the child turns 6 in that year, they can go to grade R in January. So if they go to grade R this January, they have to somewhere in the year coming up turn 6. If they don't turn 6, it's not the right time for them to go.
Yes. And then also remember, the moment that parent makes the decision that they're going to put this child into the next phase, they are disrupting everything in the primary phase. They cannot take part in the sport later on under the age group that they belong. So they either have to be older or younger, so they can't participate. They can't take part in activities like cultural activities and oratory and debate and stuff because they are too old or too young. So make sure that your grade R is 5 to 6 years. And then from there on, they're promoted. If a parent at the end of the day says, I don't care what you say, if I read this document, it says my child should be in grade R, then you wash your hands. You've tried everything to persuade them. You need that in writing. We call it an indemnification. It's an indemnity form for your school, because that principal in the other school and that teacher in the other school is going to think, goodness, what a horrible school. They can't even help this child to meet the basic milestones, because you know this child is not developmentally there. At least have something saying, I did not agree, and the parents said they wanted to. So have a form that indemnifies your school. It will impact the curriculum. It's going to impact their sport. It has a huge emotional effect. Now, they are the main mackies in the blackies. They are the big fish in a small pond. Everybody looks up to them. They have answers for everything. Now, you take that child who feels confident and has self-esteem, and you put them in a class where everybody else knows better, because developmentally they are there. That child is a nothing, and they fall very hard from being something to nothing, and emotionally they have huge fallouts here. So be careful for the small fish in a big pond situation that's caused by sending a child to school too early. Promoting a child to grade 1, your final report card in grade R will go with your transfer transcript. I said to you earlier that the other one will normally be your summative report, which is your second term's report, and that will have to go on with them. And then the grade R report card itself, please remember that there's a final summary that has to take place of the whole entire year, and it's good to have children tested for school readiness. In your opinion, I know you've managed the Brain Gain franchise. When is good times to have these children tested?
Shaman, there are different points of view here. The one is you shouldn't test them too early because the milestones have not been reached. Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. If that is you, then August, September is a good time, because then you've done a lot of the work, you've covered a lot of the milestones that needs to be covered. But the problem then is you've got a very short period of time to do any remedial and to catch up and to fix and to do whatever. So I like to, when I work with the little ones, I like to test them around about April, so that I can see, and I know for sure there are going to be fallouts. There will be, because remember, they're only in April of a year that goes up until December. But if I pick up major problems, then I know what to work on, what to spend more time on. So there are 2 points of view. The one is wait until they've gone through most of the curriculum, then test them. Problem with that is you have very little time to fix whatever is not in place. The other viewpoint is test them early, know that there will be fallouts, but then you've got a very good guideline in terms of what you can do to get them ready for that, for grade 1.
Please remember that children in grade R can fail. Unfortunately, we have a situation where they're now doing subjects and they are weighed. So it's just like any school. If a child fails maths and English, they fail. So please work hard on when there are fallouts early on to fix that, so that whole scenario is avoided. And another way that a child could fail is if they aren't at school regularly. The Department of Education says 21 days. Then you have to go ask permission to pass this child, to promote them. So be careful for the age, the time delay, the 21 days.
I think that is something you need to communicate with your parents as well at the beginning of your grade R year, that attendance is now, it's
compulsory and very important. Right, so you'll see the grade R report cards actually has another key, and their key also, this is the adaptation report. So I showed this as their 4th report, but this is actually the adaptation report for term 4, where we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7s, and we are talking about secure and if they've done well throughout the year. We've changed from the smiley faces and things that we had in preschools, and we actually here are weighing things with percentages. So you will mark a test and you will say they've colored inside the line and I tick 1 because that's the criteria. They've used the correct color, I tick 1, and that's the criteria, and that would give a score at the end of the day. So there will be memorandums for this, and you have to mark from a memorandum, and somebody has to pre and post moderate it. So it is very important that you understand how CAPS works if you're going to be giving out progress report cards. The policies on retention, as I said, a child that's too young, I kept my son back, I know you kept your daughter back. The best time to do it is in grade R, especially if they have a birthday in December, because then emotionally and physically they're not there. So instead of letting them fail a grade 1 year, they never fail, they are just retained in the phase. Be careful. Foundation phase goes up to grade 3, and in a cycle a child may only fail one time. So if they failed grade R and actually supposed to fail grade 2, they will just be promoted. We have different types of learners. All of you are aware of them. We have learners who have to learn what they hear, others what they see, and others they have to be exposed to feeling, seeing, tasting, touching, all of those experiences. When you are planning for assessment and for your school, you plan as if all the learners in front of you are kinesthetic. You make sure all 5 senses are covered in each theme, in each topic. So, as we said in the beginning, we are going to meet the child where they are at. We're not going to put them where we are at. We are going to have our standardized children, where we, in the middle column, where we can say this child is on par with their developmental milestones. Then we'll have our remedial group where we take one step back, and we cover that in our planning and also our assessment. Our enrichment group, one step forward. They're more advanced and we cannot bore them to death. Our special learners, our special educational needs or ELSEN learners, there are rules and regulations to them. The Department of Education has a white paper document, a gazetted document on them. You have to apply for concessions. These children can't just take longer later on in life in a test. There must be a reason. So the record keeping and everything in this, there's a department in education that just focus on ELSEN. They will provide you, if you have children with special needs in your school, to apply for concession under the EMIS number of your school. Here are the prices of the report cards for those of you who want to order report cards so that you are aware. So it's 80 Rand if you just buy an individual report. So say for instance you're a 2 to 3 teacher and you want term 1, 2, 3 and 4's report cards. You are going to pay 80 Rand per report card for that specific age group, right? If you are a teacher that would like that little parcel, the whole package, instead of paying the 300 and whatever Rand, you will pay 200 Rand, so there's discount for you.
If you buy all 4, term 1, 2, 3 and 4 together.
Sorry, yes, that's correct, if you buy them all together. So there's an explanation of...
And like Charmaine said earlier, these are ELDA compliant and they are editable, so you can zoosh them up to suit your school. You don't have to do this. From the course, you'll be able to do your own. But for those of you who want to make sure that you've got the correct ones, you're not sure, this is a wonderful option where you can obtain these report cards that are ELDA compliant.
Right, and then for the grade R's, you will see they're more expensive, and the reason for this is we will continually have to update them because they change. According to the weighings and stuff, they change. So if you're going to buy individual ones, it's going to cost 100 Rand for one. If you're going to buy the group, it's going to be 360 Rand instead of 400 Rand. Where and when can you buy this? You'll come to the same website as you've been using today, www.edxsa.org, and on the 27th of June, it will say purchase of report cards. You can place your order, make your payment, and it will be sent to you in an editable format as well as a PDF, so you can see how it looks when it's done. I think we should actually add a photo of one that's completed with stickers and a few options so that you really can see how the overall picture looks at the end of the day. These are the things, if you become a member of Edux SA, that's changed, and how you can go and become a part of the ECD sector. We are now SACWA accredited for full qualifications, and we're rolling out new qualifications. We are SACE accredited, so we do give CPTD points, and we receive that from SACE. We have specialist consultants that now can visit your site and help you, or help you online. We do workshops and webinars online and in person. Some of them are free and some of them are paid. You can, if you're struggling with the Vangasali process, we're going to have a lot of short courses coming up now, and we're doing a free one as well, so that you can register with the department. And then most current and relevant documents are going to be on the website. Our IT tech Christian is actually zhooshing up the whole website as we speak. So we are excited to see how that's going to come out. And then the national representation, if there's something like a child needs to be in grade 1 when they're 4 and we want to appeal that, if we have members and membership numbers, we are actually able to have a voice on national level. And then we have On the Couch with ECD, same as we did with lockdown, where we share stuff on the couch. We have the Teacher Tools curriculum shop that is coming up, and so much more. So if you need to get hold of us, here's our website, here's our support team, here's our head office number, our student advisor, and our call center. So if you need any help, slide 23 will refer. I just want to say from my side, thank you. Are there any final questions?
Yes, there's another question from Ria Talyard. Can we also buy the new Teach e-tools, still only available from 4 to 5-year-old, or will it be available for all ages?
It is going to be available for all ages, Ria, but we're first starting with the report cards, and then we'll be moving on to the Teach tools. And the reason for that is people need training. It's not a document that you can just take and you can run with. You're going to have to need training in that, and we are busy compiling short courses on that as well. And the moment it is available, it will go up, but it most probably will go as a younger age, and then progressively all of them, unless we can roll it out much quicker now that the new NALDS has been added. But the report cards are going to be a very good indication of what you should be doing per term and what needs to go out to the parents as well.
I think the important thing is that we will make sure that everything that we make available is going to be in line with the new regulations from DBE. There are subtle changes that have to take place moving on from DSD to DBE, and we will make sure that everything is in line before we make it available on the market. We've got a comment here from Liesel Malan saying, thank you so much, I learned so much, much appreciated. Sunshine Corner Preschool, thank you so much for this, learned a lot and I feel a lot better now.
Great. Please, if you guys will help us, we really want to reach everybody we can in the sector, because as you saw yourself, there are so many misconceptions and so many things that people just need to be it needs to be shown out so that it can be corrected. So if this was good for you and you know it was worth your while, please go and share that with friends so that they will come and join. And then do remember that on the link below where we shared comments, you will, on the comment bar below, you're going to receive the link that you need to complete so that your certificate can be generated. Make sure you don't spell it incorrectly, or you've made your name with a small letter or whatever, because that is exactly how it will be on your certificate. So do it correctly, and then that will be sent on to you so that you can print it. And thank you so much for spending your money to come and listen, for taking what we have to share. And if you have questions, any more questions, please use our support system so that we can help. And please look out for future training. We have so much that's coming. Our whole network has changed, and we're super excited and stoked about what's going on. And we love our sector. We love the people in our sector. We've come to know so many of you. Let's go do a good job, especially when it comes to assessment, and make sure that the children are on par, and that when we send them on, we call them the product. It's a good product for grade 1.
Absolutely.
Steph?
Last one here from Chokker Kleuterschool of Chokkerland Kleuterschool. Thank you so much. Learned so much and learned a lot. From my side, Charmaine, thank you so much for making your passion other people's passions as well, because we have learned so much from you, and you've put in so much time and effort into this. We appreciate it, and thank you for making me part of this. Even though I was part of the panel, I learned again. Every time we prepare for something like this, I learn a lot, and I think ultimately it's going to make the whole sector better.
Definitely.
In the interest of our children.
Thanks, Steph, and thank you to you too. And to everybody that worked on the webinar, thanks so much to our whole team. You're such a blessing. Keep well and stay safe, and I hope to see you soon again on the couch with ECD.